Hey guys, welcome to another movie review. Today I'm going to be talking about a film that came out in the early 90s. It's called Mr. Destiny. Unfortunately, not a lot of people really know about this film. I personally didn't find out about this movie until pretty recently. And I found it for fairly cheap too. I found this for about $4 at Target, so really not a bad deal at all. Um, so let's talk about Mr. Destiny, a film that really not a lot of people seem to know about. Like I said, I really didn't personally find out about it until just recently. So Mr. Destiny, you guys, it's about a guy who's played by James Belushi in this movie, or Jim Belushi, if you want to call him that instead. You know, the brother of John Belushi in real life, who was once one of the Blues Brothers. And he is a business executive of a sporting goods company, and he is kind of unhappy with his life. Um, he has a reasonable house. The wife he lives with is very trustworthy. They're very happy together for the most part. But he's at a point in his life where he just doesn't feel happy. There's a part of him that really feels like something is missing, that there's a part of his happiness that really has not come complete yet. He keeps having a bad flashback about his teenage years where he could have hit a home run and could have became a big baseball player and so forth. And, because he messed up on that opportunity, there's kind of this constant haunt to him of what his life could have been like. And it just kind of eats away at him over the course of time. And so something bad happens to him at his job, gets him into a lot of trouble. And so after a long day at work, he decides to go to this bar that's not too far away. And he meets up with a character played by Michael Caine, who is kind of the bartender of this place. And he tells the James Belushi character that he has an opportunity here for him that will change his life forever, that will forever put his life in the direction that he's always wanted. So at first, James Belushi's like, yeah, whatever, funny joke, I'm going to move on, I'm going to go back home and just get some sleep and probably look for a new job in the morning and so forth. Um, so at first he just kind of doesn't believe Michael Caine, but when he arrives home, his home is a huge mansion. He has a different wife now. Apparently he has kids with the wife now as well. And with this new wife, he thinks that everything's going to be better. He's very attracted to her. Every car he could ever possibly imagine owning, he now has. He has his own butler and so forth. So everything's looking up for this man now. He thinks that everything's going to play out the way it should have and so forth. But he gets to work the next day and he has the same exact job that he had before, but he's now of a higher level. He's actually the company president now and so forth. But people don't like him. There's all these layoffs that have happened that he's not aware of and so forth. So he's trying to figure out why so many people don't like him. Why the company is going downhill, why the position he once had was kind of in trouble to begin with, and so forth. And so throughout the course of this film, he's trying to figure out what exactly went wrong with this company he's working for, how come everything he thought he needed in life to be happier with is not making him happier and so forth. So he's pursuing this life that he thought would make himself feel better as a person that's making him feel worse. And he's trying to figure out what exactly is going on with this company that he didn't know about to begin with. So overall, guys, I really like Mr. Destiny a lot. It really has a lot to say about us trying to pursue that perfect life we've always wanted, and kind of how when we reach that perfect life, how even when we reach that ultimate goal, we still don't quite have that level of happiness that we always just assume we're going to have when we reach that level and so forth. So I like how Mr. Destiny really plays off of that. And at the meantime, too, it's also a very good character study that happens to be very funny, that is really well written at times, and has a lot of characters that I felt very invested in. So for my positives and negatives of Mr. Destiny, I think James Belushi's performance is ultimately what made it so enjoyable. He's also the narrator of this film. We really feel invested in the character. We feel sorry for him. He seems to have an interesting life and a long background behind him that's explored throughout the movie. Him and the wife have the wife that he had before moving into this mansion and so forth. They had a long life together. They have a lot of history together and so forth. And it's just a very good performance from James Belushi. It's just a performance that of a caliber that I haven't seen him perform quite yet in his career, and it really works here for this movie. There's also, and like I briefly covered this earlier, it's a very fun and well done narrative for this movie. It's told in first person and so forth. And James Belushi once again did a very good job, really making us feel invested in his character and so forth. And like I was also bringing up earlier as well, there are also some very well written characters in this film. There's a character played by Jon Lovitz who has a long history with James Belushi. They've been close friends for a long time. There's a long history between him and the Linda Hamilton character, who is the wife he had before everything went to perfection and so forth. Just very well written characters, very well realized characters as well. And like I said, this film's very funny. There's a lot of times where I was laughing out loud. There is a lot of times here too where I think what James Belushi's feeling about this perfect life and so forth is kind of the humor that we would find too if we were in his position and so forth, that we really don't believe what we're looking at is really happening and so forth. So there's funny moments like that that really work in this movie. Michael Caine's character is very interesting in this film as well, and he was probably pretty famous by the time this movie came out. I think it came out in 1990, I believe, so he already was pretty established by then as an actor. And just a very interesting character. He has a very interesting perception of what destiny is, how sometimes we make the right certain choice that we don't really completely understand, even though there's other options for us and so forth. So his character is very interesting in this film. I think he was a very intriguing character, and I can definitely see why Michael Caine got involved with this film, just because his character is very interesting in this movie. This also has a very realistic take on if we were given that perfect life we've always imagined and how it can still go wrong. I really think this take on that is very realistic to how a lot of us would feel this way at first, and then as it plays out and realize that there's imperfections within that perfect life. I think this film really nails it on the coffin with that realistic take of the perfect life we've always wanted, and how even when we have it, there's still imperfections. And I also think it's funny how Linda Hamilton's character works so well in this film. When I first started watching the movie, like, oh no, Linda Hamilton, for Terminator 1, Terminator 2, very serious, action-oriented actress and so forth. She really nailed it in this movie. She really does work as this comedic character of this wife that's very concerned about the husband and so forth. And at first I was worried it wasn't going to work, but it does. And I think the reason why it works is because we're so used to seeing her play those tough as nail female characters like in the Terminator films and so forth. Seeing her play this role was actually pretty funny because I'm not used to seeing her do this. And as a result, her character feels more comedic just because I'm not used to seeing her play such a role like that. But for my negatives of Mr. Destiny, I think the opening of this film was a little misleading. It's very unusual to start off a comedy the way that this film started out. It almost feels like a mystery and suspense film when the film starts out. And whether that's the intention or not, I'm not sure. But the opening just felt a little too different compared to how the rest of the film plays out. Like the second we're on that second scene, completely different tone. That tone is consistent with the rest of the film. But that first scene is very different in tone compared to the rest of the film. Jon Lovitz, like I said, has a role in this film, and he's kind of the close friend of James Belushi in the movie. There's a part in the movie where, James Belushi becomes this big CEO and this big businessman when he's living this perfect life and so forth. And at that point in the movie, the Jon Lovitz character, who once was very funny, has a very down role at that point. At that point in the movie, his role within the movie is very kind of depressing. It really is almost too dark for this character. They definitely take his character in the darkest possible role they could when this James Belushi character is promoted to this position and so forth. And that's really too bad because Jon Lovitz is a very funny comedic actor. And it's really too bad, but by the second half of this film, it's kind of a depressing role for him. And my last negative of the movie is it's a little predictable at times. There's a lot of times where you don't know exactly where the story's going. It's definitely a film where I didn't feel a lot of surprises as the film progressed. But, if it's well written, if it's well acted, well directed, and the comedy works very well, who cares if it's a little predictable every once in a while. So, Mr. Destiny, I'm going to give it a 9 out of 10. I really do think it's a hidden gem that I think more people should check out. For $4, you really can't go wrong with this movie. That's the price I found this film at. So if you're looking for it on, say, Amazon and so forth, I'm sure it's pretty easy to find. It really is worth your time and money to see this one. I really think there's a lot of things that are said and done about this movie that really are pretty accurate to how all of us would feel about possessing that perfect life if we ever were to get it and so forth. So Mr. Destiny, 9 out of 10 for me. If you see this at a local Target or Walmart or whatever for $4 like I did, it's actually worth the price of seeing. So 9 out of 10 for me. Make sure to check out Mr. Destiny.